At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES Podcast with your host, Soulblazer.
Hello, everybody. This is Super NES Podcast, episode number 263. These are your hosts. I'm Greg, and joined by Joe.
Hello.
And we are covering another number of games, again inspired by a popular cartoon / live animation series that's well known and beloved over the years. We're looking at the two Flintstone games that came out with Super NES, which are very different in tone and nature to each other. Even the two games are at their core platformers.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that here in just a moment. But I don't think this was part of our possible bad game episode, Joe. I think one of us came up with the idea of covering these games. I don't remember at this point, but by now, which one of us did.
So, if I remember correctly, and spoiler, the movie tie-in game, I believe, was on the list for
okay,
bad
that makes sense.
games.
Yep, okay, right.
And
okay,
then
right.
you had mentioned that there was a different game based on
Yes.
the cartoon, and that we should lump them together. And I said, well, and I'll take it off the list.
Okay.
So here we are.
So, yep, and we'll get into here just a bit as whether or not that we agree with that finding or not, because as we said before in the past and many times on this podcast, a lot of games get a bad rap these days that we have not felt on closer inspection did deserve that bad rap.
Right.
But we'll get that here in a moment. I had never played either of these games before the podcast. Joe, did you have any experience with one of them?
I have not.
Okay. Because only one came out of Genesis, so
yeah.
So I think most people here are going to know what the Flintstones are, but I'll go into a quick talk about their about the actual series and whatnot. The Flintstones was broadcast on primetime television on ABC from 1960 to 1966. It was actually the first animated series with a primetime slot in television, which proved that it was a viable concept. We covered the Simpsons games on the last episode. Simpsons could not have been on if Flintstones hadn't paved the way 30 years before for the success the show had in being a primetime show. So Flintstones definitely gets a lot of credit and respect for that. Done by the very celebrated group, like Hanna-Barbera. Very popular cartoon show, like was on. I remember somebody saying they went to Germany several years ago for a business trip. Flipped on the TV one night at the hotel, and there was an episode of the Flintstones on with subtitles in German. So,
yeah.
Just a very popular show. There was a follow-up show that maybe you remember as a kid, Joe, which was the Pebbles and Bam Bam show, I think it's what it was called. So,
Yep.
And then there were, of course, the two live-action movies, which we'll talk about here briefly here. Also, like when we get to the games. Like a variety show of the time period, the show did have some guest stars on there doing voices of major characters. Again, like all the Simpsons. The Flintstones walked so the Simpsons could fly, basically, as far as like what that show could do and got away with it, how it operated everything during that time period. So, so Simpsons and a lot of other shows definitely owe a lot of homage to the Flintstones for what they were able to achieve. Back during the one of the 60s. Flintstones also made several Flintstone characters also made an appearance in the second Space Jam movie as well too from 2021. So another cameo appearance for them. There were several television films as well too. The Flintstones like been starred in several educational programs as well. And did you know there was a Flintstones versus WWE tie-in, Joe?
Yes. Not a great for TV movie, but those are obviously designed for children, and in that sense, it did succeed at its job. But yeah, as far as capturing an adult audience, yeah, those weren't great.
Right. There was talk about rebooting the show a while ago. Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane wanted to take a crack at reviving it about 10 years ago, but it didn't happen. There's also talk about an upcoming animated film that may or may not still happen. Apparently, the film's been in development hell for the last 10 years. So the last update I saw and said it is still officially in production. But what the actual status of it at this point is, God only knows. But I think it will come out eventually. There was also several theme parks in the U.S. and Canada that also use Flintstone characters. Yep. I don't think any of them are still around today. No. I think Kings Island in Ohio was the last one to get rid of Flintstones stuff 2005, it looks like. Yep. So, Flintstones definitely made an impression on popular culture. They're still remembered today, I think. Maybe young people don't know them as well as older people, as older folks do, but they definitely did get into the popular culture of the time period. So, and by the 90s, there was again Flintstone buzz. The property was again viable again because of the upcoming movie. The first of two movies, the Flintstones, came out in 1994. Had a pretty good cast, the time period, I thought. I remember seeing the movie, the movie on home release. It was alright. I enjoyed Flintstones as a kid. It was one of the cartoons that showed up, showed a lot of syndication and whatnot when I was growing up. So it's I thought the movie did a pretty decent job of conveying the look and feel of the movie of the show that got into the movie. And the acting was pretty good. What they were trying to pull off with the overall tone of the movie. Both John Goodman and Rick Moranis were pretty big stars at the time period, so it made sense to include them in the movie. So, it was decent. I thought the movie. I definitely thought the movie was leaps and bounds better than the sequel that followed several years later, which was pretty terrible. So the movie I thought was okay. Yeah, I think I remember you saying, did you see the movie also, Joe, a long time ago?
Oh yeah. I remember. Yeah. I remember actually going to the theater to see that movie.
Okay, you did one better than me. Okay.
Yeah, and I just want to pop in and say, you did omit the Flintstone Kids cartoon in the mid '80s.
I totally forgot about that one. Yes,
that show, although not fantastic, still a good show. That is what got my generation into the Flintstones.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
and in my opinion, why we got at least the cartoon game that we have here. And the ones on the NES, why we got those games is because of that, the success of that cartoon show. So, the live action Flintstones movie I thought was pretty good overall. I still think it is pretty good today. It's not a great film, but it's a good one and it entertains. I have nothing nice to say about the second one, and my mom said if I have nothing nice to say to keep my mouth shut. So that's all I'll say about Viva Rock Vegas.
Yeah, that movie definitely felt that movie definitely felt like a cash grab.
100%.
Unfortunately, so, but yeah. So you mentioned the Flintstone NES games. There also was two Flintstone NES games. There was two Super NES Flintstone games. The first one. I played the first one. The first one's called The Rescue of Dino and Hoppy from 1991.
Yes. Yep.
Which is a decent platformer. I think But the second game, however, surprised Dinosaur Peak did not come out in North America until the closing months of 1993. And because of that, it's a very rare title because of the fact that it only was released in North America as a rental title with Blockbuster. So I should say it's believed that's the case. Some people claim that the game was sold in regular stores, but there's not any solid proof one way or the other. The developer said that they had the contract with Blockbuster for the exclusivity, because given how late in the NES cycle that this game released, that makes sense.
Right.
But because of all that, as you know from past Blockbuster-only titles that we've covered before, that's made this game very rare and very expensive. Expensive. Yeah. So the European copy of the game is a bit cheaper to pick up. But yeah, North American NES copies of that game sell routinely on eBay for around between $800 to $1,600.
Yeah.
So
that's crazy.
It's a Casanova collection for sure. So, I have not played this game. If I understand, it's pretty much the same as the first game. Just a few small tweaks, but at least I can say, starting to get to talk about these games, at least I can say that these two Super NES games, although they're both platformers, are different enough, at least in style and gameplay, that the games at least feel different enough from each other compared to the two NES games. So I will give them the credit for that. So let's cover the one that came out first, which was the one based off the
cartoon.
It's close, but you're right. Yes, the cartoon one came out first.
Yeah.
So, which is called the Treasure of Sierra Madrock. Came out in Japan in August of '94. Originally, one of the rare game time periods that actually came out in the West first. North America got the game in March, and Europe got the game in June. And like I said, August was when Japan got it. So there's a few of those games which came out first here in the West. But like the NES games, this game was developed by Taito, because Taito had the license to the Flintstones at the time. We've covered Taito before in the past, so we're not going to go into them too much detail. So Taito's still not as big as it used to be back in the day, but Taito's still definitely a very viable game company. Still releasing games and licensing their properties so their companies too, in this time period. So this game, the Treasure of Sierra Madrock, takes its name from the famous 1927 novel, the Treasure of the Sierra Madre, which was also turned into a movie in the 40s. So, being based on the cartoon, and with the extra memory space and storage available in Super NES, they're actually able to get the game more of a plot than the NES games actually had. Mm-hmm. Basically, the leader of the Water Buffaloes, which is that secret organization that Fred and Barney are part of on the show, decides to retire. He's known as the Great Poobah.
The Grand Poobah.
Yep, so he makes a contest, and whoever finds his treasure, the treasure of Sierra Madrock, will be named successor. So Fred and Barney set out to try to find it before anybody else, or even their wives, who also for some reason are also looking at the treasure as well. Managed to find them first. Game features both single player and multiplayer simultaneous multiplayer mode, where it's you take turns playing. One player goes, the player goes, and so on. There is a pass-through feature in this game. If you know what you're doing in this game, it's not too long of a game to play. The playthroughs online are they average around an hour and a half to 2 hours long, as far as the actual your gameplay goes. So right away you see this game is not a pure action game. There actually is kind of a world map and also kind of a board game aspect to this as well too, because the game opens up on a world map with a whole bunch of spaces. And with your turn, you roll a dice, which is you're just a very nice, a boulder, which is a nice touch. Like you get to move the spaces you want to move, and depending upon where you land, you either hop into play a level there, platformer style, defeat bosses, enter a shop, go through a mini game, etc., etc. There's also if you happen to run into your wife, Wilma or Betty, respectively, they'll drag you back somewhere on the board to a random location. There's no difficulty settings in this game. So I'd say overall the difficulty of this game is about medium, probably. Pretty typical average platformer difficulty. You have some power-ups you can find in the game, which again are themed to the cartoon, like Bronto Burger and clams and clams and whatnot. Dido, Fred's pet, also shows up every now and then. You also do races in the game, which are determined by the game's RAM, simulate variables just like speed, learning angle, maximum terrain speed, vertical speed. So then you find items, forward speed, terrain speed, vertical speed, and learning angle are all determined by the RAM to try to get the race kind of a random element to them. So you have to finish these to get items that are critical to the quest. You are allowed to practice those races in the stadium likes well too. There's a pretty good variety of worlds in this game, which again are based upon TV themes like in the cartoon. Like you have Bedrock, Snow Rock, which is an ice world, Magma Rock, the fire world, for example, etc., etc. So, I happen to like the mixed gameplay. The world map / board game aspect to it kind of gave it like it was kind of like a pleasant surprise to me. Kind of gave the game a bit more fun factor and like replayability for me than it might have been if it was just an ordinary straight platformer. So I'm curious to hear what you thought about that, Joe, and what's like your overall impression of the game itself.
Yeah, I booted this up and was not expecting a board game to be presented to me, so that was a standout right away. I like that clearly multiplayer is the thought here, especially with the board game aspect. But it doesn't have to be played as a multiplayer experience.
True.
So,
yeah.
As a single player, you actually swap between Barney and Fred. Obviously, Fred going first, Barney second, respectively. And there's really not much different about them gameplay-wise. So, Fred has his club, Barney has a club. Fred packs a bit of a bigger punch than Barney does, but Barney is able to actually jump and kind of float a little bit, so his jump's better than Fred's, so I did like that little minute detail as well. I thought boss fights were super fun. The first boss fight you come across, at first I was really confused as to what I was doing, because it's like this big ape guy, and he's like pounding the ground, and coconuts are falling off the tree, and I'm thinking like, oh, I got to dodge the coconuts and just go whack the boss, right? No, what you're supposed to do is use your club to whack those coconuts back at the boss, and that's how he takes damage, and then you can defeat him and overcome him. So that kind of threw me off and gave me a bit of a quick little learning curve, which was honestly fun. Like the idea that you gotta knock those projectiles back at the boss, so you gotta learn the timing and whatnot. I thought that was really fun. This is, as Greg said, this is a very easy game, and easy is definitely the key word. So, I thought the Mode 7 foot races were fantastic, but there's really no like supreme strategy for that.
Yeah.
Like I saw online like a couple playthroughs, like people were like jumping to like kind of look like they were gaining speed. But when I did that in the game, I didn't notice the difference between that and actually just running it, and taking the corners tight. What was the other thing I was going to mention? Oh, the other thing is the bonus stages. Bonus stages pop up every once in a while. So that's not only how you're going to, get some health power-ups or whatnot, but you can also get a ton of extra lives that way. And on top of that, every time you complete a level, there's a kind of grid that pops up, like a tic-tac-toe grid, 1 through 9, and then a random number gets popped up, and if you complete a row vertically or diagonally, you are going to get an extra life. And you can replay easy levels or boss fights, like that first boss fight with the gorilla or ape or whatever it is. You can repeat that over and over again. You'll continue to get a number randomly given to you, and you can obviously exploit that to be able to get more lives. So it's not that the game is inherently easy, but there are ways that you can cheese the system to make it even easier. And you got to keep in mind, like, this is not designed for Greg and Joe in our 40s playing Super Nintendo. This is designed for Greg and Joe, in our single digits playing this game.
Or not even quite, because I'm older than you are.
Right. You get what I'm saying.
I definitely agree with you. I agree with you overall the difficulty. I felt that the horizontal actual action stages were easy. But the mini games. The minigames are definitely much harder. The minigames to me felt like the hardest thing to do in the game. So that's what I said. Overall, balances out to like a medium difficulty in the game. That's what I call it. But so obviously, some parts are easier than other parts.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we're going to get into it, but I mean, if you want to slide into that now, we can do that. But like the presentation for this game and the graphics are gorgeous. Absolutely. Like this is
it's just like the cartoon.
Yeah, it's just like the cartoon. It's bright and colorful. I mean, I can't even say one bad thing about it. The music's fantastic. I didn't have any issues with like sound effects or anything like that. Honestly, the only knock I had was the fact that it was so easy. I felt like I could beat it in my sleep. Outside of that, this is fantastic. This was such a good play. And
I feel the same way. It's like Flintstones doesn't do anything amazing, but it does. But what it does it very solidly.
Yeah.
If you enjoy the franchise and if you enjoy a platformer game and don't mind don't mind the fact the game's overall easy. This is a fun game still, even nowadays. I thought.
Yeah, I was very upset that it took me 30 plus years to play this game, because this was my bread and butter. Especially growing up, like platformers were everything I played. So
I don't think the game sold very well because there weren't a lot of copies of the game available online.
Oh, okay.
And demand for it's low also because the price of the game are pretty cheap as well. Yeah. So I suspect many people missed this game because probably didn't get a big attention when it came out in '94.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
But and there really was not very many reviews of this game back in the day either. GamePro was one of the only major magazines to give a review of this back when it came out. So a lot of folks missed this game. But looking online, people who did play this game back in the day, overall seem to enjoy it. So. This is definitely like a fun game. The controls I also felt were like pretty good. There may be a couple cases where it's like I kind of felt the hit detection was a bit off, or kind of wished kind of felt that the club swing was a bit slower than it should have been. But I thought overall the control package was like pretty good.
So any of those complaints I also had, but it was so nitpicky, especially after playing the next game, that I didn't even note them. So yeah, I mean, there were some instances where it did felt like there was hit detection may have been off, but it wasn't as bad as the next game. That's all I'm going to say.
So one of the things that I want to also comment on, because it's also, like I said, Flintstones was very groundbreaking legend, very groundbreaking important when it came out in the 60s. There are parts of that show, however, that have not aged very well to modern sensibilities. I'm sure most listeners out here probably know what I'm talking about. One of those elements that does not age very well is definitely front and center in this game, because I can't put too much fault upon the Japanese developers, because the Japanese sometimes have a hard time trying to capture American media and popular culture correctly. So if their intent was to copy the show exactly, then they succeeded. But in this game, your wives, Betty and Wilma, operate the same way they do like the cartoon, like many of the episodes.
Yeah.
They're useless and they're nags. So that's the developers were trying to pull off here and recreate recreating that element of the show. Kudos to them for that part. They nailed it perfectly. However, I did mention it because the fact that obviously 2025, anybody playing this game now is going to really probably notice that and may have some issues with it. But again, it's just more like, that's just how things. That's just how the show was in the 60s. But so I also think that's the reason why that show, and also another show of the same time period, the Jetsons, are harder to find on TV these days anymore because sensibilities have changed since then. So I'm sure I've had to look up to see I'm sure streaming service has Flintstones on there, but I'm not really sure how you could watch the show. Your best bet probably is just to buy like a DVD set.
I was going to say, I own the DVD set, so I don't have to worry about sensibilities.
Yeah. But, so, I mean, so I just want to mention, they did capture the tone of the show perfectly, but even the 90s when this came out, that definitely was not, that aspect of it definitely dated, by quite a bit. So just fair warning to anybody playing this game like nowadays. But beyond small complaints, this is a pretty good game, I thought. The reviews of the game were only mixed to average. Yeah. GamePro had the same big complaint about the game that we said. It was like too easy, but I kind of felt their review was kind of overall harsh. But the overall aggravated score for this on Game Rankings is 64%, which kind of feels a bit too low. It's like I think at least around 80%. I think would be fair for this at least. Yeah, so,
I agree.
But like I said, a lot of folks who played the game back then seem to remember fondly. So, it's definitely it's a pretty a lot of these tie-in games suck. It's nice to play a game every now and then like this one that actually does a pretty good job of pulling off the look and feel and the overall quality of the property that was licensed off of and trying to duplicate from here.
100%.
So I do give it credit for that. So, so it's nowadays, young people, as Joe mentioned, young people probably like when the Flintstones, like for the cereals, like the vitamins, because they're not really used much for much else anymore these days. But so anyway, this game, however, would not have existed if there wasn't some viability to the franchise again, because the upcoming because they have a movie. So the movie tie-in game, however, was made by a totally different company because the rights were totally different. Like I said before, Taito had the rights to Flintstones games based upon the cartoon. However, Ocean of America, our old friends, who are notorious for snapping up and making games based upon like movies and TV shows, got the rights. Got the rights to the console version of the Flintstones movie. Which also came out to 1994, and so the game was developed for the Super NES, Game Boy, and Genesis. The Game Boy version came out first, actually. Europe, late 1994. North America, December of 94. The Super NES version followed in February of 95. And it came out a couple months later in Europe in April 95. Neither version of the game got released in Japan. The Genesis version of the game is a curious case of lost media, it looks like, because it was also one of a few games along with Mega Man: The Wily Wars, which was available for play briefly at least on Sega Channel in North America in 1995. People do remember playing on there, but no prototype has been found of that complete version of the game since then, unfortunately. So hopefully, it won't turn up eventually because. The Genesis version of the game, by all accounts, from people who are playing it, was pretty much identical to the Super NES version of the game. So it wouldn't be the biggest loss in the world, but it's kind of sad that the people that that only got debuted briefly on the Sega Channel, and then that's it. There was a prototype of the game found back 2019, but it was a very incomplete version of the game. So. But as of right now, as of recording this 2025, no complete version of the Genesis version of the game has been found. So, why the game never got a physical release? Probably because the Genesis version of the game got delayed. It wasn't. It got pushed back from its original release date all the way back to December of 95. By then, the movie had been out for over a year. And the game, spoilers, didn't sell or review particularly great. So, right. Ocean probably decided it wasn't worth the. It wasn't worth the cost, the cost or expense. So, anyway, Ocean developed the Super NES version of the game themselves. They allowed other developers to handle the Game Boy and Genesis supports of the game. So, this is a platformer also. And the big difference with this game being is, well, one of several differences is that. One, this game's entirely platformer compared to the last game. Two, they're actually using still image likenesses of the actors and actresses like in the movie. So John Goodman played Fred in the movie, so he looks like Fred looks like Johnny. So Fred has like John's face on it in the game, for example. So. Graphically, also, this game is both different and also the same in the sense of the last game. The fact that the movie characters superposing the characters is a bit strange, but the overall graphical quality of the game is pretty good. I thought. It doesn't have that. It has more of a stylized. Anime / art style going for it compared to the very true to cartoon form that the other game did. But there's still very detailed graphics. I still thought graphically the game still looked very good. The film animations slapped over the characters look a bit strange now, but I'm sure back then when the game came out, it was definitely very impressive. And also the music in this game also, like the last game, I thought overall the music in this game was very good. So, to me, the graphics, the music of this game were definitely the highlights of the game because everything goes downhill from here. So, Joe, I'm curious to hear your own thoughts about the graphics and music, and you can then talk about the gameplay while this game is inferior to the other game, unfortunately.
Yeah, so, graphically, I agree with you. At least for the model of Fred. I thought the levels were okay, but they seemed kind of all not really samey, but they were just dull and drab is the best way I'd explain it. Like it would pick a color and kind of just go with that. So that's my biggest complaint about the graphics. It's just I think the overall presentation was kind of meh, but the character design was pretty good. That being said, music, sound effects, okay. There was a point in this game where I had enough and I had to quit. And we'll get to that. So you get 3 lives, 3 continues to get through 5 levels. Each level is split up into like 3 or 4 sections. In my notes, I put that you play as John Goodman because they did a good job making Fred look like John Goodman, as they should. But that's the problem too, is like I never got like immersed into it because I'm playing as John Goodman. That being said, one of the things that I didn't understand, and I even tried to go back and watch like trailers for the movie and everything else because I was not going to put in the time to watch the movie in time for the podcast, but he is constantly huffing and puffing, and I was scared that Fred, or I should say John Goodman, was either going to pass out or have a heart attack during my gameplay. Like, I thought that was a real possibility because of the way he was sucking wind. I don't know what's up with that.
A lot of folks commented, a lot of reviews back then as well as now, and comments. People comment on that also. I don't know. I think like I do remember. I do remember Fred being more out of shape in the movie than he was like the cartoon show. So maybe that's what they're trying to go for here.
Maybe.
But it does feel a bit strange and weird. Yes, I definitely. You're definitely going to agree with that. But.
So, outside of that, the name of the game is what you'd expect for an ocean game. We've covered quite a few on this podcast. But also, like, your typical licensed fodder here. I
do think this game was better than some other ocean world games we played. For example, I think this game is better than Cool World.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So,
right.
So it's not the worst ocean game I played, at least.
Yeah.
But also, speaking about difficulty, I'm curious to know if you felt the same way, Joe. This game to me had a massive. This game to me was definitely unbalanced difficulty. Being more than the first game.
Yes.
Because the first half of the game is easy, and then all of a sudden you get a huge difficulty spike, and then for the second half of the game is like wicked hard all of a sudden. It's a very weird thing.
Yeah. So I was going to bring up that I felt the first half of the game, like you said, it's pretty easy. Second half was a little more difficult.
That damn lava serving stage.
Yeah. So, the game has its flaws. It asks you to take blind jumps. There are ill-placed hazards and enemies that are jumping in your way. This has a lot of those tropes that you'd expect from a licensed platformer that's kind of there to just take your money. Where I did like some of the gameplay aspects. So you get bowling balls and rocks. Bowling balls, in my notes I put just save those till the boss, and I'll go over that here in a bit.
Sure, that's fine.
Rocks are amazing. You can throw your rocks. It'll kill the enemy. You can actually pick that rock back up. The idea that you can actually pick up a weapon that you threw, I thought was actually one of the nicer things that were programmed into the game. And it made it so you pretty much had infinite ammunition for the most part, because you could pick up whatever it was that you threw. And that does go for the bowling balls as well, which I'll touch on here in a moment. But yeah, I felt like some of the platforming was asking a bit much. A lot, like I said, it's a lot of blind jumps, leaps of faith, just hoping that you're either going to A, land on the platform, or B, you drop off a ledge and there is a platform there to catch you. And there's no way to really, move the camera to be able to see that. This game, more than the previous game, I really felt the collision detection to be way off. There were quite a few things that I was swinging
I felt
at.
that too. Yep.
I swore I was hitting them, and they were not dying, and I was very upset. So I guess I might as well talk about that first boss. So the first boss that you come across, it's, if I remember correctly, it's a giant dinosaur. But essentially, you throw your bowling ball, you'll hit the dinosaur, it'll damage them, the bowling ball will come back to you at least, halfway, generally. You can either continue to throw the bowling balls you have, or you can pick up the bowling balls that have already hit him, and then just throw more, and you just rinse and repeat until he's dead. And it, the life bar is marked by stars on the side, but the stars, I found, like, it took like 2 or 3 hits before a star even disappeared, so why it takes 20 hits almost to kill a boss, go figure. That being said, the following level, where you're gonna bounce Bam Bam around off the car, this made me quit the first time I played it. I got incredibly frustrated, and like I had a totally different review written up because of this. Between the sound effects for Fred's feet hitting the pavement and the bouncing sounds from Bam Bam and eventually Pebbles bouncing off the car, that combination just drilled into my brain, and I literally had to just shut it off. I couldn't go any further. And then Inside Baseball, Greg messaged me and was like, hey, can we record this on a Tuesday instead of a Monday? And I was like, perfect, because now I guess I have a reason to go back and push through that level. But, yeah, I mean, those were really, it's pretty broad, but it's generally what you're going to come across. And yes, oh my God, the lava level is probably one of the most infuriating levels I've played in a platformer, which is funny because Disney's Aladdin also has a level like that, which is also infuriating.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, lava. Why do we have to either surf or fly a carpet in those levels? I don't know. Like, just because it happens doesn't mean we have to make a level out of it. That's all I'm saying. Just some dialogue that says, hey, we flew through lava. Woo! That would have been enough. But it is what it is. As a movie tie-in, it works.
Yeah.
Like I said, the graphics are fine. It depicts Fred as he is in the movie. I jokingly say it's John Goodman, but I mean, it's John Goodman because it's supposed to be John Goodman.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, outside of that, I mean, like I mentioned dull and drab for the levels. So like the first set of levels is like brownish. You're in the quarry for Fred's job. So it's like different shades of brown. Then when you're in the car, Bam Bam and Pebbles are bouncing off, and whatnot. Like you're in quote unquote bedrock. I swear I saw the same building drive by. I don't know how many times. So you can call it whatever you want, but same thing. Like it's, a solitary color just in different shades. And then you come across the jungle level, which is literally just green, different shades of green. I liked the parallax scrolling in the background. Like that was done really well. But yeah, like even in the lava level, like everything's like, I get it. The glow of the lava, it's going to be green. I mean, reddish, but like, it's just like, it's like brown, green, red. That's, and spoiler, the lava level is where I officially called it quits. So I don't know what's beyond that. But
well, I did finish the game. There's not much two more. again, the game's fairly short if you're doing the playthroughs online, like about an hour long. But very strangely, after you go through all that hassle, there's no final boss. You just the final you just get the final the final cutscene, the final password, and then that's it. Game over. So. I have no idea why there's no final boss. Maybe they ran out of room or time. But yeah, to go through all that hassle, and then not even have a final boss to face is kind of interesting. Yeah. But so I definitely agree with. I definitely agree with most things that you're saying. It's not the worst game Ocean's made. By far, I mean, it's definitely not as good as the first game. The entire game was better, but if you're a platformer, you can have some fun with this game. I do like the fact. How the developers worked very closely with the studio that made the movie, UIP. So they provided the script, the costume designs that are showing into the movie. So the developers then they use that to make the overall look and feel, really do a great job matching the movie and matching the overall movie look and how it looks. Definitely like one of the highlights for the game for sure. There's a funny there's a funny story online about how the manager of the project said that they had a problem trying to get certain animation sign off on, because in the game you have Flintstone, like Fred Flintstone, walking away with his back to the screen to the certain stages. Well, in the cartoon, he never did that. His back was never shown at all to the camera. Right. So, trying to get the sign off on by the execs was kind of a challenge. He said so. But in the end, and so again, it's like, I don't feel this was a cash grab or a rush project. In fact, the game was delayed at least once to give them more time to finish it up. Yeah. So the developers, I thought, did a great job of trying to match the movie, and they had the tools. And they were given support by the company to make that happen, which is a better situation than what we've seen with a lot of these movie tie-in games. So overall, the graphics, music of this game were definitely like a high point. Just the overall, just the unbalanced difficulty, some of the stages, hit detection, just the overall gameplay is. It's not horrible, but definitely near as good as the Flintstone game was, unfortunately. But probably only recommend to play this game like if you're like I'm like a big fan. You're a big fan like the movie and or platformer games in general. So the reviews of this game when it came out pretty much matched our thoughts on it. EGM gave it 5.8 out of 10. GameFan was the most positive. They gave it like 82%. Makeathon gave it 47%. Next Generation gave it the rate of 5 stars. Total gave it 50 out of 500 points. Video game, the computer entertainment gave it 8 out of 10. So pretty decent ratings, about the overall same ratings the last game got. I think maybe part of that's because the really impressive movie graphics in the 90s just don't impress or wow as much anymore nowadays like they used to back then. Yeah. So that could that could be like a reason for that. So anyway, so not a bad game, not as good as the first game for sure, but is this a bad game? I don't think so personally. I think it's like very like a meh game for sure. So I don't agree with this being on a bad game list. I'm kind of glad that we decided to lump this together like one episode show.
I mean, I think I am a bit harsh on it, but I don't know. It just didn't gel with me, and maybe
that's fair. Yeah,
maybe it's because I played such a good one before it. You know what I mean? That could be very much the situation. But hey, it is what it is. That's why we have this podcast, so that we have varied opinions, and we can have fun going back and forth with it.
Yeah, sure, definitely. So, all Alrighty then, so to wrap things up here then, we're going to take a look at the, cheat codes, passwords, eBay, like we always do. There are passwords for both games, but those passwords, the passwords do various things that can help you out. So certain passwords, for example, can give you can turn trophies into game player icons. They give invincibility. They can give you, they give you straight to the credits. They can give you 50 lives. Various passwords in these games that can do various things. The passwords for both games also, I'll just touch on that briefly. I really like the passwords system both games used. Because, the movie game used these weird nonsense sentences, which are still kind of funny to read. For example, Betty picks blue ribs, Bam Bam makes small rocks, Barney grabs blue trees. Those are all passwords. So, that's kind of funny. And then with Treasure of Sierra Madrock, they're all done in a very Castlevania style, where it's barrel, gold nugget, cake, egg, soda, whatever. So definitely makes easy copying of passwords, your kid back in the day for sure. There were some cheats in the Japanese version of Treasure of Sierra Madrock, but they didn't make it over to the Western version. So the only if you want to cheat, you have to look up the passwords for both games to do things like invisibility or 50 lives or whatever. So that's what you have there on there to help you out with the games you wanted. So I mentioned before how both games didn't sell very well, and it's true. The movie game definitely sold better, so I'll start there. 30 copies of that game listed on eBay as we do research. 20 copies of the game had recently sold. Probably because it's not a great game. Prices of this game were very cheap. Actually, by Super NES standards, dirt cheap. You can pick up a card-only version of the game sold recently in North America. These prices of shipping, they sold anywhere from $15 to $26, which is dirt cheap for Super NES pair games. CIBs wasn't that much more expensive. $28 to $91 was the range for CIB copies of the game. So definitely a very affordable Super NES game to add to your collection. Sierra Madrock, however, was a much harder game to find. It was on there, but the prices were much higher as a result of that. Yeah. I only saw 8 copies of the games listed on eBay, with 12 copies of the game had recently sold. Still, prices range anywhere. The card prices range wildly from $35 on the low end to all the way up to $156 on the high end. Wow. For the cards. CIB prices were more steady. Those range anywhere from $103 to $120. So, one game very cheap at Super NES standards. One game definitely above average without being too breaking the bank expensive. Yeah. I thought. Obviously, because the rights issues, neither of these games have been released since then, and I really doubt that they will. You say that,
but we also just recently got in the past couple of years we got that Jurassic Park collection that had all the games. I could totally see someone getting the rights and just doing a collaborative release where it's all the different console versions and different games all in one.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that's impossible. Ocean's gone these days. I'm not sure who. I'm not sure who's the rights to their games, but Hanna-Barbera has been absorbed into Warner Brothers Animation these days. Right. So Warner Brothers has the rights to that cartoon. Let me see. Ocean Software is now, their rights are now held, let's see. Infogrames originally, now looks like which is Atari, but Atari sold off many of their rights over the years to make money. It looks like Bandai Namco now has the rights to Ocean's former games. Oh, okay. So, not possible, I'd say. If Bandai Namco could work something out with Warner Brothers. Yeah. But like I said, I don't think the Jurassic Park games were pretty good overall and definitely much better received than these games were. So I think there was definitely a higher demand for a collection of those games as opposed to this. So while you're right, Joe, that in theory could happen, I wouldn't bet on it. Yeah. For sure. So and maybe that's and maybe maybe one day we'll find that lost Genesis version of the movie game like floating around somewhere. Yeah. But anybody who does find a physical card definitely can sell that for like a pretty penny. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So anyway, that wraps up our coverage like the Flintstone games. Next to the podcast, we were again looking at 2-for-1. We're doing a lot of 2-for-1s this year, it seems like, for some reason. But these games we're looking at are not based upon a popular existing property. They're ports of very popular. They're ports of they're console ports of very popular series of PC games. We're going to be looking at Super NES versions of the Prince of Persia games 1 and 2 in our next podcast. I played both these games a lot as a kid. I definitely have a lot of affection for both games. I never checked out the Super NES version of the game, so this will be kind of the first time for me seeing how the version of these games compares vis-a-vis to their original computer copyrights. I know you played some of the newer Prince of Persia games, Joe. Did you ever play any of the first 2 games? Do you have any experience at all with?
So I vaguely remember having some experience with the first game, but I don't remember where that experience was.
The first game's poured almost everything under the sun.
Right. So that's why I say I don't know where that experience was, but I definitely remember playing the first game. The second game, I didn't even know there was a second game, in all honesty.
Oh yeah, there was like Prince of Persia. Yeah. There was that was followed by Prince of Persia 3D, and then there was the reboot of the franchise on the PlayStation, Flexing at the time, and then there's been a couple of sequels since then. So
I remember the original, and then everything in between Sands of Time doesn't exist to me, and then Sands of Time. And then going forward. So, I'm excited to see how the Super Nintendo port of the game is, and I'm excited to experience the second game, which I have a feeling is going to just be more of the same. But I am.
It is pretty similar. There are some differences. There are some quality of life upgrades for sure. The second game. But you're right. The second game's pretty close. Yeah. It definitely hears the old formula. The old formula. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yep. Which I understand totally. It makes sense. So, but all right. So look forward to that next time. Questions, comments, feedback, etc. can be directed either at our Facebook page, or also you can also feel free to email directly at the SuperNESPodcast.com. Joe, how can I reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at JOESUX30. I have a very public Facebook that is not family friendly. I also do a not family friendly podcast called the Radical Retro Roundup. It is not dead, I promise you. At some point we are going to do something with it. And those are the best places to find me.
Okay, sounds good. As always, thank you very much for giving us a few minutes per day. Thank you again, as always joining us, Joe.
Of course.
And we will catch you again next time. Stay safe, everybody. Be well.
Bye.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Super power.